Welcome back to the next episode of the Grand Prairie PD podcast. I am your host, Nate. I am here with a new co-host, Fred.
Yeah, I'm pinch hitting today. Pinch hitting Fred Bates. Fred is my name, and of course, I am excited about this young man that we're talking to today. Looking forward to this.
Thank you, Fred. I am too.
Yeah.
We're here with retired Detective Sergeant Alan.
Yes.
So we got to chatting a little bit, kind of had to shut things down so we could properly start, but I'm super excited about this. Sounds like just from chatting with you to begin with, you've led a life completely of service. I mean, you said that you joined the Marine Corps out of high school. Before we jump into that, as far as your early life goes, what did you always know that things were going to kind of drive you towards a life of service between the military and law enforcement?
When I was in high school, early years, no. I played football at South Grand Prairie High School, and I thought I was a pretty good wide receiver. So I thought I'd maybe get a college opportunity, but my dad was, of course, with a Dallas police officer.
Okay.
And he
What
flew
years was he there?
from 57 to 83.
Oh, wow.
And in 1969, the Dallas Police created their helicopter unit. My dad was one of the first pilots for the Dallas Police helicopter
Cool.
unit.
No kidding. That's
And
awesome.
so, you know, Dad really didn't talk much about work at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went to the fourth grade at Arlington School just off of 360, and my dad was a street cop in Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
and J.D. Tippett was his best friend.
No way.
And on the day, November 21st of that year, the principal at our school called us out into the parking lot and told us that President Kennedy had been killed,
Right.
and told us to go home. Well, my dad was on late nights and he was home asleep, and so I had to go wake my dad up and tell him that President Kennedy and his best friend J.D. Tippett had been killed.
Because J.D. Tippett, with for anybody that isn't familiar, was the first officer to interact with Lee Harvey Oswald
Yes.
after the assassination.
And Lee Harvey Oswald killed him.
Yeah.
But no, we the summer of '64, my dad bought 3 acres in Grand Prairie out off Matthew Road long before I-20 was built.
Right.
And again, it was our neighbors were then Grand Prairie Police Chief Fred Conover, an officer named Moody, who ended up going to the Dallas Police, Don Sherman, who was my lieutenant in CID eventually, and Ken Burr was the captain over the police department in 1964.
All in the same little...
Yeah, and so our friends called our neighborhood Fuzz Hill because we were all police officers. But no, I my senior year basically, the Vietnam War was still going on, and my parents had already told me they couldn't afford to send me to college,
Right.
and I wasn't getting any kind of interest in going to college, giving me a diploma or any kind of help with,
Scholarship, right?
scholarship of that. In January of 1972, while I attended South Grand Prairie High School, they were building the high school, and I attended all of my classes in what was the Jackson Junior High back then. Jackson's first year as a school was my 9th grade year. And so I attended all 4 of my high school years were in the Jackson building. I did graduate at the Coliseum, but a Marine Corps recruiter came to the cafeteria at the Jackson building and presented a recruitment. And he was in dress blues, and I was impressed with the way he talked.
Those blues will get you.
Yes. So my dad had been in the Navy.
Okay.
And so I went to my dad and told him I wanted to enlist in the Marine Corps. He had to sign because I was 17.
Right.
And on June 14th of 1972, I went to San Diego, California, and Marine Corps boot camp, and spent 5 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, including time in Vietnam. And in that time, I said this many times, because I turned 18 in boot camp. The Marine Corps turned a boy into a man. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, by then I was married and had 2 children. And when I went to work for the Dallas Coca-Cola Bottling Company just to have a job. Well, in spring of 1980, my brother came home from the Marine Corps. He had gone to the Marine Corps as well.
Younger?
By just 2 months and 4 days. It's
Wow.
my stepbrother. And we were in DeSoto where my parents lived at the time. And we were there visiting, and he said, Alan, Cedar Hill PD is going to offer me a job. He said, look in the paper, Grand Prairie PD is hiring. We ought to all be cops at the same time. And I was looking for a career. I just didn't know what in.
Right.
And so I came and applied, took the civil service test, physical agility test, and on August the 1st, 1980 was my first day as a Grand Prairie police officer.
Wow.
Went to the police academy, of course, in Arlington, and got out, and there was you may or may not know Olin Manning. The name rings a bell or not, but he was my FTO, and he was very hard-natured FTO.
Yeah. As they tended to be back then.
Yeah, but then here I come. I'm released from training.
And let me ask you before we get into that. We talked a lot about your more recent era of veterans and adjustment to police work. How was it for you adjusting from as a Vietnam era Marine, who did time in Vietnam, to life as a police officer? Because obviously the risks and the threats are different, and the bouncing back and forth between that aggression and being super nice is obviously, I would imagine, exasperated by what y'all dealt with in Vietnam.
Well, the thing here was there were policies and procedures and the Texas Penal Code.
Right.
So basically having learned how to take orders and how to give orders, I wanted to enforce the law and protect the citizens of my hometown. I call Grand Prairie my hometown. And so it was a passion. The Marine Corps, there's this passion they give you. If you're going to go after it, go after it. And so I came after it. I wanted to make my dad proud, of course.
Right.
But basically, there were so many police officers that I knew that this wasn't their hometown.
Right.
And so for me, the sense of pride of being a police officer in my hometown was just when Mr. Conover called me and told me I'd been hired and told me what day I was going to start. I was so pumped. But, learning. I mean.
Well, the approach that you took is a little different than what a lot of guys take, because a lot of guys, including myself to a certain degree, will kind of distance themselves from the area that they police just mainly out of a safety concern. So it's interesting that you took the completely opposite approach. Yes. Did you ever have any issues with that?
There were a number of times
really?
That I would run into somebody I went to high school with, and one was with our star high school quarterback at South Grand Prairie High School, and I pulled him over for driving crazy at Carrier and Jefferson, and he was intoxicated, and he told me, "You can't arrest me, you know my daddy," and no, you're under arrest for DWI.
Right. Yeah.
And then that same guy, years later, when I was in Major Crimes, was at the Royal Oaks Apartments. Are they still here? The Royal Oaks Apartments.
Probably renamed.
303.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was there, and he had committed suicide.
Wow.
Oh,
and so it was tough emotionally that my friend had committed suicide.
Yeah.
But no, there were other times where I'd pull somebody over who would, we know each other, and on occasion, if it was a minor violation, we'll just be careful,
Sure.
Use your turn
work for anybody.
signals.
Yeah.
Exactly. But my drive to conduct thorough criminal investigations consumed me beginning in November of 1984, and learning the juvenile rules are different than they are for, you don't arrest a juvenile, you take them into custody. Things like that.
I don't even know. I'm a detective, and I don't know all the rules. I just stay away from juveniles.
Yeah, well, me and a female police officer named Shotterly, they hired us as juvenile detectives, and so that was learning what do I need to do? How do I do this?
Sure.
Taking somebody to juvenile detention for the first time, and what's the policy, and how you do this, and what's admissible and what's not, and so. I was hungry to learn, and so there were other officers and detectives here that I would see how somebody handled a situation, and I would tell myself internally, if I'm in that situation ever again, I want to be just like that guy. But conversely, I would see another officer handle a thing, And I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I was learning from other people's experiences as well as having my passion for doing the right thing for the right reason and trying to get as much evidence as I could to write the good police reports. And what apparently happened over the course of being the juvenile detective, and then in the summer of 85, Sergeant Buddy Wade asked. He was the property crime sergeant. Asked me to come to work for him, and so I started doing that job in Northeast Grand Prairie doing property crimes investigations.
Exactly what I do.
Yes, yeah. And basically, without me knowing it, I apparently was proving to people that I could write a police report, and I was articulate, and that I addressed who, what, when, where, how, and when known why a thing occurred, why being motive, basically. And I'm just trying to do a really good job because I want to provide a good investigation for the victim of the crime. And to give you an example, okay, I had a lady in Northeast Grand Prairie whose house got burglarized and her husband's West Point ring got stolen. Okay, and she was all upset that her husband's West Point ring got stolen. I worked the streets, found some people that needed to talk to me, and basically I recovered that West Point ring out of a pawn shop in Grand Prairie.
Very cool. And
when I took that ring to her and saw the emotional response to her, that just proved to me, Alan, you do what these citizens here need.
Yep.
And then the major crimes world started in May of 1990.
Before you slide over to major crimes, we've been doing a good linear job of going forward, but I've got to ask. There's something that's very important. I just want to ask, really, two questions. First of all, where were you deployed in Vietnam?
I was in Saigon.
You were in Saigon.
In Saigon.
In that time period.
Well, I was in it's called a Air and Naval Gunfire Liaison Company.
Okay.
And it's kind of a fun story. I go to boot camp. I'm the high shooter at the rifle range, and I'm thinking I'm going to be a sniper. Okay. They come the day we're going to graduate to come to give you your orders where you're going to go, what school you're going to go to. Basic Marine Corps Administration School. Clerk, typist.
Yeah.
And people said, well, you can throw your typewriter at them. But so I went through, did the best I could, and became a clerk typist.
Yeah.
We graduated a few days before Thanksgiving, 1972. Mm-hmm. I was the only person whose orders weren't there. So the officer said, you got to wait until Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, to get your orders. I go in on Friday, you're going to Vietnam. Okay. And so I reported to Saigon. The unit was based in Saigon. Mm-hmm. I report to the unit. I go to the major, the commanding officer. Sir, I'm reporting for duty. He looks at my orders. I don't need a clerk typist. Why are you here? Sir, I've got orders. Can you drive a Jeep? I said, yes, sir, I can. Go to the motor pool and get your license. You're my Jeep driver while you're here. So I was the commanding officer's Jeep driver, armed with an AR-15. We drove Ben Hoa, Da Nangs. I mean, we drove all over Vietnam because we had units here, there, and yonder. And I saw things and did things that an 18-year-old probably shouldn't have to do. But basically, then they signed the peace treaty. And so in April of 1973, they sent me to Japan to serve out the remainder of my tour, and I went back to being a clerk typist.
The reason I ask that is because many times those early formative experiences translates very well. Many times we don't realize this, but translate into law enforcement. Yes. A lot of times we have younger guys, ladies that come on a job and don't have those early experiences. And so they're with life experiences. Those life experiences don't exist for them, but a life experience in the Marines, in Vietnam, proves out some things in your character and your ability.
Well, can I tell a story or two real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. When I got there to be this clerk typist, my boss was a lieutenant who was also an OV-10 Bronco pilot. Air and Naval Gunfire Liaison Company, we had troops on the ground that would call the OV-10 Bronco pilots and radio in the coordinates for the naval gunfire to fire bombs, okay? And this lieutenant, he and I really hit it off. And then, not long after I got there, he was shot down and killed. Well, then, the January 19th, 1973 is the day.
He's good with dates, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. January 19th, 1973 was the day the peace treaty was signed. That night, me and several other Marines, because there were all these veteran Marines that were taking me to do things that a man shouldn't do. I don't want to go into too much detail about that.
You don't have to. There's plenty of movies.
But it involved drugs and alcohol and other things. And that night, they didn't ask me. They took me to a and we were there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're supposed to be back to the barracks by 10 that night, but he had paid the duty NCO to sign us in. So it was just one of those things these veteran Marines were doing.
Yeah.
The Viet Cong started bombing the base where we were.
Saigon at this point? Yeah.
And we're running back to the barracks. Mortars were falling here, there, and yonder. When we got back to the base, where I was supposed to be wasn't there anymore. So had I not been where I was, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And when I got out of that, at my young age, I was thanking the Lord, you kept me alive for some reason.
Yeah.
And that still gets us to 1982 eventually.
That's another story we got to talk about.
Yeah, but I was in the Marine Corps twice for a total of 5 years. I got out in 1975 and couldn't find a job. Went back in 76 for 2 more years, and then the Coca-Cola thing, then applying here. But again, I wanted to be a good cop. I wanted to lead by example, and I wasn't an FTO yet. I ended up being an FTO eventually, but just learning the Texas laws, remembering what the penal code said about intentionally or knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence. The criminal, and I still got those couple mental states up here in my head. But
so when you started as a police officer, because a lot of people when they interact with cops, they know the officer's sitting in the car, they're typing on their computer, they're doing, they have a general idea of what kind of surrounds us in our vehicle. You show up day one to be a cop, and you hop in the car with your FTO. What do you have?
And that's why that was my second question. I'm glad you hit that, because I always love to talk to our veterans about that first day. What was that like?
Well,
and what would you have? Probably a pad and a pen, right?
Well, yeah, basically, and a fifth 15th Amendment. The amendment, he has the right to remain silent.
Right.
We had to prove we were reading it, not quoting it.
Right.
But my training officer was very hard nosed, and but again, he was also very. You're going to do it this way, you're going to do it that way. And he was very professional in his training of me. But when I came to work here, there were no MDCs in the cars. So you basically talked on your radio.
Yes, sir.
That's about it. Your partner, your radio.
Yes.
Did they issue shotguns?
There were shotguns you had to check out from the jail to take to your car, and there was a shotgun rack. Not everybody got a shotgun every night, but sometimes you did. But we had nightsticks, and we ended up with mace eventually. But I was.
So that's all. I'm sorry. So you didn't have mace. It was just nightstick, pistol, radio, cuffs,
and a shotgun occasionally if you went and checked one out. Okay?
And that was 1980.
1980.
So that was you still had revolvers at the time. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I had bought a .357 revolver. And we had revolvers, yes.
Yeah.
And then when we went to semi-automatics, I got a government model .45. But yes, sir, we had my semi-automatics, and we qualified 3 times a year, so we had to learn how to quickly change cartridges, etc.
Using the speed loaders.
Yeah, speed loaders, yes. But my first 2 years as a street cop, because I wanted to get to this, this is a very important thing in my life, and. Monday, August the 9th, 1982, I was on day shift. It was the day after my birthday. I turned 28 the day before.
That's funny. So you had the same birthday as my dad, and then you got to boot camp for the Marine Corps on my birthday.
Oh, cool. I was living in some apartments over off of Arkansas near 360, doing security to help my rent.
Sure.
A gunman came into Grand Prairie that morning. John Parrish was his name. And he went on a shooting spree in businesses on the north side of town and killed 6 people and wounded 4 more. At the last place where he killed some people, which was about a quarter mile from the old police station in my beat, he went into the warehouse to kill some people, and so he had a truck, and somebody saw the keys in the truck, and they took the keys out of the truck because he was shooting at people. So he had to steal an 18-wheeler when he came out as his getaway vehicle. So cops are trying to find him in downtown Grand Prairie. They find him on Main Street. He's going west towards Arlington. I'm at Great Southwest and Marshall, and I make a U-turn to go up to Main Street, and there used to be a drive-in there at Houston Street where there's 23rd, 24th, 25th, and here's this drive-in theater. They said that he was going west on Houston. I'm at 25th and Houston. I look to the east. Adrenaline kicks in. I'm not hearing my siren anymore. I see the 18-wheeler at the stop sign. There's officers shooting at him. He's shooting at them. I'm driving east, and instinctively, without even thinking, I set up a roadblock in the intersection of 24th and Houston. I looked at the truck, and it looked like he was going 5 miles per hour. I took my semi-automatic handgun out of my pocket. I had my right foot inside the car, my left foot outside the car, as I was trained in the police academy to get the engine block between he and I. I thought we were going to have a shootout. I laid my pistol up over the hood of the car. I looked at the cab of the truck. I took my safety off, and I told myself, pull the trigger. 1, 2, then this happened. He rammed my roadblock, my car, going 60 miles per hour.
Wow.
The impact knocked me 155 feet. This side of my face was crushed. This is stainless steel.
Oh, wow.
Compound fracture, fibia, tibia. My hip broken in 2 places. My jaw broken in a number of places. Neck injury that I give John Parrish credit for on a regular basis. So after he hit my car, he knocked my car up into the parking lot of a business on the corner. He hit the curb and turned the tractor trailer over on its side. He kicked out the windshield of the tractor and went into what was left of this portable building. There, several Grand Prairie police officers got in a shootout with him and killed him. So I woke up in the ER at Methodist Central in Dallas the next day, and my dad was standing there in uniform telling me what happened because I felt like my initial feeling was I got beat up.
The only thing you remember was those 2 shots. That's the only thing you remember.
I fired 7 times.
Okay.
I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is what I think.
Right.
The crime scene told me I fired 7 times. But my dad told me what happened.
So let me ask you, sorry. So do you think he accelerated towards you, or do you think you misjudged the speed at first?
No, I think adrenaline caused it to look slow motion.
Slow motion, yeah. Everything slowed down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was an officer named Bellino that he and I got hired the same day. And I didn't know this, but I heard the radio communication later. He was the guy behind him that saw the 18-wheeler first. He's hollering, he's going to ram it, he's going to ram it. But I didn't hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
Outside the car with adrenaline going on crazy. Right. But I woke up in the ER, or the ICU in Dallas Methodist Hospital, and this side of my face, I couldn't move my eyes because it hurt this eye. And about where you're sitting, Fred, I woke up one day, and my mother wasn't there, my dad wasn't there, no nurses, no doctors. It's just me. They've already repaired my foot. It's up in a sling, okay? And there's a gray image where you're sitting. And I said, God, if that's you or one of your angels, I don't know why you kept me alive. But I hope I earned this with what you gave me, this life. And then the orthopedic surgeon said that I would never walk without a limp. I would never run again. And I played every sport imaginable in Grand Prairie. And so you don't challenge a Marine like that. Okay? When I got out of the hospital and was sent home on light duty, or no duty, of course, I began going to the gym in downtown Grand Prairie and working out with weights, and started playing racquetball with my foot in a cast. And then in December of 1982, I went to my orthopedic surgeon's office, and I went into his office, and I danced around and jumped around and did circles and danced around. I said, look, doc, look, doc, look, doc. Are you kidding me? You want to go back to work? I said, yes, sir, I do. Well, they had already decided that on January 1st of 1983, I was going to be the first ever desk officer at Grand Prairie PD while I was injured, still recovering. Yeah. So February 1st of 83 is when I went back to work in patrol. But when I left that orthopedic surgeon's office, I'm walking to my car and I'm going, oh. And my legs swelled up twice its size every day for the next 2 years, but I didn't tell anybody. I started playing racquetball, flag football. I mean, you know Heath Hartman?
Yes.
You know, he was our flag football team quarterback. He played South Grand Prairie as a football quarterback. And I played flag football. I mean, I just played every sport imaginable. Yeah. Volleyball, basketball. I mean, but I was grateful to God for keeping me alive on a day that I should have been killed for the second time in my life. And so when I got through with the juvenile crimes and the property crimes experiences, and then when I was asked by Sergeant Bob Wilbanks to come to work for the Major Crimes Unit, I think it was called Crimes Against Persons then, not Major Crimes yet. It was called Capers back then. This intensity level turned into, crimes against persons. I mean, sexual assaults of children, women, and just, again, the tenacity to stay committed to an investigation. There were times where I'd work at a homicide that I'd worked 3 or 4 days without sleeping, and people, Alan, you need to go home and get some sleep. Right. No, the trail's still hot. I mean, and I could tell stories out the wazoo, but I'm just saying that, this tenacity. And so when I began to take the sergeant's test,
Before you go there.
Okay.
Homicide cases are, it's hard to describe what it's like. Vernon Garibeth, who taught homicide, right? We work for God.
Yes.
So it's hard to describe how you feel when you're actually the lead detective on this case. You have family, you have an agency, everybody's looking to you to handle this particular case. Do you recall your first homicide investigation, the first one?
Well, yes. What does that card say? Who do I work for?
We work for God. That's it.
Yes, exactly.
That's it.
From Vernon Garibeth.
Yeah,
February of 1991. I attended his class.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
We're friends on Facebook.
Okay, yeah, because he was a New York homicide commander,
yes.
And basically taught homicide throughout the country.
Yes.
Homicide investigation,
Yes.
Basic homicide investigations.
Yes. And he has this
throughout the country.
He has this homicide investigator's oath. The oath of a practical homicide investigator is do everything in your power to bring to justice the person who took the life of someone, the family's loved one, on behalf of the family and the surviving members of the family.
Yeah.
And basically, what I learned in February of '91, you do whatever it takes, Alan. You don't let somebody else, your schedule, whatever you think you're going to go do, because I learned that while the trail's hot, the trail's hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But so that's why that's on there.
First case.
Yeah, my first case, July 3rd, 1990.
You are amazing with those numbers.
Well, May the 10th of 1990 was my first day on the job as a major crimes detective. Okay, and I was on call. This is July the 4th week. Okay, so I get called out to the center in Motley on a call of a shooting of a cab driver. Okay, I respond, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and there's an eyewitness that was out on his front porch having a cigarette when he saw this cab pull up, and then he heard what he thought was firecrackers because it was July the 3rd. The cab starts moving up to the intersection. He said the two guys in the back of the cab get out. One of them reaches around and puts the car in gear, and they both take off running to the south, into the woods. And so he goes and checks, and the cab driver's been shot in the back of the head, and he's dead. And that's actually a case I'm going to be talking about here pretty soon in East Texas. But Wakil Abdul Khan was his name. And
the cab driver.
The cab driver, yes. And he worked for the DFW cab company. And other than what that witness, I'm talking to that witness, and he gave me the description of the two suspects. It was very accurate. And I thought that was kind of interesting. This is almost midnight, and he knew their height, their weight, what they were wearing. Well, it turns out, as I got to know him, as I ended up having to show him a photo lineup, that he went to prison for 2 months for a crime he didn't commit because somebody falsely picked him out of a lineup.
Wow.
So what I learned through him was this guy's giving me what he's giving me. I could trust this because he didn't want to do the same thing that happened to him.
Got it.
But basically, I started with the cab company. Went to the cab company to find out who called the cab. It was an apartment complex directly across the street from General Motors, in Arlington.
Were you working this by yourself, or did you have a partner?
I was by myself.
By yourself?
Yeah, on the call out. Yes, I was by myself. I go to the cab company, and I talk to the lady in dispatch that got the call. And she said, well, I got this call. We didn't have caller ID in 1990.
Sure.
And she said, he asked for a cab to come to this address. And I said, what's the number there? And he said, what's the number here? And somebody there gave him the number. He gave her the number. Well, the moment she said that, he had to ask someone there what the number is, so somebody's going to know who called for a cab. The cab driver picked up his two riders, and he told the dispatcher, I'm en route to Grand Prairie with two riders. And so it starts with that. I want to go to the apartment complex where the call was made for the cab he picked up. So I went to the management the next day. I went to the manager, and she gave me the names of this couple that lived there. So they were from Africa, and they were there on business. But they have cousins and aunts and things that live there. I'm walking through the apartment complex, and I didn't tell you this earlier, but because Sergeant Greg Hunter and I were part of this together.
Okay.
In the fall of 1989, we were asked to be members of a crack cocaine task force chasing crack cocaine users and dealers in Dalworth, and did that for like 7 or 8 months. So I got to know some of the folks on the street.
Sure. Right.
I'm walking through the apartment complex, and there was this guy that, he had a street name, and, Shady D was his name, And I'm walking, and he goes, yo, Patton. I said, hey, Shady D, what's up, bro? He said, man, what you doing up here? And I said, oh, man, I'm just chilling. I didn't really tell him why I was there. But he was nowhere near the apartment. I go to the apartment, nobody's there, So the next day, I take another detective from Major Crimes with me named Tom Junkin. And we go back over there, knock on the door, and Shady D answers the door. He matches the description of the shorter of the two suspects. So I asked him, do you live here? Oh, this is my Aunt Iris's place, I said, well, were you here on July the 3rd? Yeah, my aunt had a pool party, an all-day thing. I said, well, were you here when a cab was called? No. So I'm not trying to tell him he's matches the description. I know who he is. So this is where the tenacity of a detective comes into, and because we work for God, there's people would say, Alan, you got hunches. No, it's creativity telling me something.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, I came back to the police station, and I looked up his name on the computer, the names file. This is when we first had the names file. And I saw that he was a passenger in a car. A lady got pulled over for speeding, and he had warrants out of Grand Prairie. And she lived just around the corner from where the shooting occurred, at an apartment complex over on Southeast 4th. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to tell him this, but I'm going to go talk to her because it's just kind of a hunch,
Right,
okay, again,
right.
okay? So I go over to the apartment, and I knock on the door, and this guy answers the door, okay? I had filed several burglary cases on him when he was younger, and he knew I'd been a burglary detective. And I said, is she here? No, she's not here. Why you want to talk to her? I said, and this is what I did. I said, I'm working a burglary her car was involved in. I need to talk to her about that. Well, she ain't said nothing to me. And I said, well, so I didn't want to tell him I was there talking about a homicide. So I just, here comes the creative genius, okay? Tell him you don't want to talk to her about a burglary. But he matches the description of the taller suspect who got out from behind the cab driver that I suspected was the person who shot the cab driver. Well, here's my card. Just ask her to call me, okay? So I leave. I go back to the police station. She calls. Her name was Doris. What was her name? Doris, I think. Anyway, I go to her apartment. I park behind the building. Knock on the door. He's still there. George Leroy Osborne was his name. He went by Leroy, okay? So she's here, Patton. I was, okay, Leroy, thank you. And I'm watching the kids. I said, okay. So she comes out to my car. I sit her in my car, and I'm telling her, this isn't about a burglary your car was involved in. There was a shooting. She goes, the cab driver? And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, was the weapon a small caliber? I said, 25 caliber is what the medical examiner said. This is my fault. She started crying. This is my fault. And she told me that Leroy, she felt a guy that she knew had stolen a 25 caliber pistol from her apartment. Mm-hmm. And she told Leroy and his half-brother Matthew that so-and-so stole this gun from me. She said they used my car to go over to his house on Southeast 19th Street. They broke into his house and stole a 25 caliber pistol. So I told him, I'm here to talk to her about her burglary being involved in a car being involved in a burglary, and I'm talking to her.
Right.
So
there was a burglary.
Yes. I said, so where's the weapon? And she said yes, that him and his half brother had run over to the apartment. Okay, and she said, but they were just sweating. Is all. And she said the gun was in the apartment, and one of my kids was playing with it. So I told him to get rid of it. She said he threw it in the creek beside the apartment. I go find the man whose house was broken into because he didn't make a police report, and I take a burglary of a habitation offense report. Then I go back and get a warrant for Leroy's arrest for burglary of a habitation. Okay, so I go back to the apartment with other officers, and we arrest George Leroy Osborne for burglary of a habitation. Mm-hmm. I get a warrant for his half-brother also, but I can't find him. I then have some fellow police officers and my sergeant come with me to search that creek bed. And one of the officers turns over a rock and finds the 25 caliber semi-automatic. The man who eventually reported the burglary to me had the serial number and the make and model of this 25. So I booked that in. And then I went to talk to Leroy, and Leroy basically said, I was just going to rob him, but I put the gun against his head. I was going to steal his money, but then he hit the brakes, and it made the gun go off. Mm-hmm. And so he's making it like it's an accidental shooting, okay? The medical examiner calls and confirms that the 25 caliber is the murder weapon. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they found a wallet in the back floorboard of the cab that had $14 in it. There was $14 stolen out of his pocket. Mm. But at any rate, I am working my case still.
Well, let me say this. For your first case, many times detectives have this mindset, particularly if you're in rotation. I just hope this is a dog tied to a tree, right? That's the first one. You don't want the deep, but your first one is one that you actually have to work. It's not a case that's a dog tied to a tree. It's not one of those deals where you know the suspect immediately. You actually have to work the case.
Oh, yeah. Well, then a few days later, his brother's name was Matthew, his half-brother. And Matthew came and turned himself in on the burglary warrant. And I visited with Matthew because Leroy said it accidentally the gun went off. Okay. Matthew tells me a whole different story. He said, we stopped. He said, told the cab driver to stop here. He said, we owed him $6. All he had was a 20. The cab driver said, I got to get change. So we went to a convenience store so he could get change. And he said, while the cab driver was inside the store, he said, Leroy showed him the pistol and said, I'm going to kill him and take his money. This is his half-brother. And so he, in a statement, we stopped at the stops. We stopped there, and he pulled out the gun and shot him in the back of the head. And so Matthew became my star witness. You know. So
it was actually a robbery.
Yes.
And it seems like it wasn't even when it went bad. It was just a robbery with intent to kill this guy. And
I've said this a number of times. Very seldom does somebody get killed for nothing.
Correct.
Okay. This murder was for nothing. Leroy accidentally dropped his wallet in the floorboard, and the money he took out of his pocket made a zero balance. What he stole and what he lost. So he killed him for nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And so that was my first homicide case. And there's a deeper story if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
You got time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In the summer of 1992, I'm in Major Crimes. And there was a detective, there was an officer named Gaylord Hayes. I don't know if Gaylord Hayes worked here. Gaylord was an older guy, okay? Well, Gaylord was, when John Parrish ran over me with the 18-wheeler, Gaylord was one of the guys running up to the building, and he slipped, and his gun went off, and the bullet went through the wall and hit our gunman in the back of the head. Well, Gaylord called Top Cops, an old TV show.
Yeah.
Okay, and suggested they do this August 9th thing where he killed all these people into a story to put on their program.
Sure.
They come to talk to me. I'm just a major crimes detective, okay, crimes against persons, whatever you want to call it. And they asked me about me setting up a roadblock, and we're doing this, so I'm telling them all the things I can remember and what I'd learned, Well, what do you do now? No, I'm in major crimes. What do you work? Well, crimes against persons, including murder. Yeah. You ever worked a murder that you thought you did a good job? I said, well, my first murder was this cab driver. So I told them about it. A year later, Top Cops calls me and said, we're going to do your show. I said, the 18-wheeler? No, your cab driver murder. They flew me to Toronto, Canada, and paid me $5,000.
Wow. To
be on the show. And wow.
Do you still have a copy of the show itself?
No, I don't.
You didn't get it because of VCR back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I have a picture that was taken there. They had an apartment complex in Toronto, so they were doing the part where I ran into the guy.
Okay, right. Reenactment.
So they took a picture of me and the guy that played my role.
Okay.
Well, then after they released it, then everybody at work, Mr. Hollywood, you're Mr. Hollywood. And they also, though, because of the 1982 thing, Alan, you're so ugly you can stop a truck with your face. But no, then, of course, going on through the rest of my time in major crimes, there was when Greg and I, Sergeant Hunter and I were on the task force together, a young crack cocaine dealer named Robert Green was shot and killed over on Southwest 17th Street. And we were on the task force, but another detective was on the case. Well, after I got out of the task force and became a major crimes detective, then information came to me while I was researching another murder that somebody knew who killed this crack cocaine dealer. And Greg and I were on that case together. And, It's just when I got promoted to sergeant in February of 1998, I took that case with me, and I solved it in like 2001.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
So I know that going from detective to supervising, you're not as hands-on with cases. Did you miss being lead detective as opposed to supervising cases?
I was hands-on detective sergeant.
You still were hands-on. Huh?
Yes, I mean, there's just so much that goes on. And do you ever heard of the cadet murder?
Yes.
The Naval Academy
Yes.
cadet, Air Force Academy cadet.
Famous
Okay.
case. Famous case.
Okay. There were two detectives named Dennis that had the case initially. Okay. And basically they arrested the wrong guy for the charge. And that's a long story I'm not going to tell, but I learned more about that watching the TV than I did in working in the same office with these two other guys.
Wow.
You know, Dennis was senior to me on the department. The other one was junior to me on the department. But we're not talking to you. This is our case. Okay? All right? Whatever. Okay? Well, when she ran her mouth at the Naval Academy, the sergeant, his name was Chuck Sager of Major Crimes.
I'm sorry. Is this the one where the couple,
Yes.
like her couple, and then she kills
Yes.
the one that she's jealous of or
Yeah.
something?
No, she had him kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Rivalry.
Okay. So
Yeah.
basically, I'm not involved because they're things that, you know, we arrested, we made an arrest, you know. Yeah, well, okay, a little bit later, the wrong person.
And they didn't tell that on the TV show.
No, they did
right?
not.
Yeah,
No.
they missed that part.
But
What show are you talking about?
it was called
Snap. One was Snapped. It was
Okay.
an episode on Snapped.
Yeah.
And I believe an episode
It was on
Dateline.
Dateline NBC
Yeah,
and People
yeah.
Magazine investigates
Yeah.
both. But how I got involved was in the summer of '96 when we were made aware of her running her mouth at the Naval Academy, and he was in the Air Force Academy. The older detective went with the detective lieutenant out to Colorado to interview David Graham was his name, okay? The sergeant called me and the other into his office. We were going to get a warrant for Diane Zamora, who was in Forest Hills with her grandmother. The Naval Academy, the Naval Academy has sent her home on leave of absence. And so sergeant called us in his office and said, we're going to go tonight. We're going to meet Forest Hill PD and we're going to go arrest her. And I said, Sergeant, messed this up enough. I want to be in charge of this arrest. And he said, Detective Patton's in charge of this arrest.
Wow.
And I planned every single thing. And I could tell you for the whole story, but I had a plan. We're going to do it this way, and I'm going to transport her to the jail. I'm going to put the handcuffs on her, you know, because I wanted to make sure I did everything in my power that whatever statement she might give would not be suppressed in criminal trial.
Correct.
Okay? So I told him, these two have messed this up enough, okay? And he said, okay, you're in charge. We go to the house. Do you know Alan Frizzell?
Yes.
Okay. Frizzell was one of the detectives who went with us.
Yeah. Recently retired.
Yes. I asked the sergeant and Detective Frizzell to go into the house. She was at her grandmother's house, and to put her under arrest. And then I was going to come in, and I came in and I grabbed her arm because physical contact and eye contact. I'm a nonverbal communication expert. And I said, Diane, I'm Detective Patton. Remember, will you come with me? You know, I wasn't being demonstrative, you know. Well, there was a calendar on the nightstand where she was at. And in December of 1995, she had circled December the 4th, 1995, and put Adrian. So that was evidence.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We collected that. Well, I go outside with her. I read her Miranda warning. And there was a detective named Cliff Williams that was also with me then, okay? I get in my car, and I'm going to transport her to the jail. And on the way to the jail, I'm going to establish a rapport, trying to get her to trust that she can talk to me. So we're driving, and I'm telling her that David's in the academy, and you know he is, and you know something's up, because we wouldn't have handcuffs on you if he hadn't said something about you being involved. So she's just listening. We had a bag phone. back then. Brad Geary was the deputy chief over detectives back then. I get a call from Deputy Chief Geary. I'm driving, and he says, say to her, barbells. I had no idea what barbells had anything to do with anything. She had used a barbell to smash her on the back of the head.
Mm-hmm.
I said, barbell, she did this. And so I knew what that meant. Okay, so I said, see, that's that reaction. So I'm talking to her. I said, so clearly something's being said. He said to them, and she's not, I said, don't say a word to me, just listen. Phone rings again. Say to her, John Green. John Green. John Green was a former Marine whose house they went to clean up after they killed her.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that when the phone calls. So I take her, and again, strategy. I don't book her in. I have Detective Williams book her in because I don't want her to see me as an enemy.
Right.
Okay? When they're through booking her in, I take her into the jail supervisor's office. I said, Diane, clearly by now you know there's something up. David's saying something. But I want you to just go get some rest, and we'll talk again later. I didn't ask her to talk to me then. Mm-hmm. You know why? Yes, I read her Miranda warning, but I wanted the judge to arraign her because on that arraignment form you sign that you understand your rights.
Good strategy.
So the next morning, we had a copy of his statement faxed to us, and I highlighted a sentence from each of those 4 pages. Didn't read her the whole thing. Went downstairs to ask her, did she want to talk to me? She said yes. And so back
then, every interview was not on video.
No,
is that
it was
correct?
not. It
Yeah.
was
So
not.
that's why
No.
it was important.
Yes.
Keep that. Yeah.
And so basically, I showed her his signature at the bottom of each page, and I read one sentence from each page. They were important sentences. I said, would you like to give me a statement? Yes, I would. At the old police station, we had cubicles. The lady who sat in the cubicle next to me was in charge of entering items pawned at pawn shops in the computer. Okay? That's what she did. Checked them for stolen by serial number and entered them. And I told her, I said, I'm bringing a girl up here. I want you to sit right here. I want you to listen to every word I say so that you can testify in court that I didn't do anything to influence her statement. Mm-hmm. So I walked Diane upstairs on my side of the cubicle where you couldn't see this girl. And I set her down. I read her Miranda again. She'd been arraigned. I read her the statement. On the statement it says you have the right to remain silent. And if anything, it's all in writing. Okay, so on the statement, you're giving a statement. Okay, that can be used against you. And I typed while she talked 4 pages of statement. Okay, and then took her back down to the jail. And in Sergeant Sager, my boss at the time, he wrote me a commendation letter about the methodology of my agendum. Because what I tried to do, Fred, was think before I acted. Mm-hmm. There's consequences if I do this. If there was exculpatory evidence that I discovered that tend to prove somebody didn't do a thing, I provided that exculpatory evidence with my criminal case. Mm-hmm. I didn't try to hide anything.
Right.
And when we went to her trial, her attorney was trying to say I had influenced her statement. Well, guess who came to testify? Oh, the lady next door. Right. Well, she was found guilty. The next day, I got promoted to sergeant. It's in February of 1998, okay? The police chief calls me in. Glenn Hill was his name. I want you to be the major crimes detective. Can you do that? The second sergeant. I said, yes, sir, I can. How do you do that? I said, you do the right thing for the right reasons.
Real quick, just for those that may be listening, Diane Zamora is the name. If you want to go back and look at that, Dateline does a feature on it. Snapped does a feature on Oxygen.
Okay, let me get to that.
Okay.
When I got promoted, because I forgot to get there, okay, the chief says, you're also the public information officer. Mm-hmm. Well, then the press, because of where they were when they were arrested, turned it into the cadet murder.
Correct.
Right.
And Dateline NBC came. I was interviewed by Dateline NBC. People Magazine Investigates came. I was interviewed by them. Oh, I'm sorry. But basically, you know, I became the star of the show, so to speak. And, you know, and so, again, that was a Mr. Hollywood, you know, but, you know, basically that just still continues. You know, I've been asked by a number of different entities to come talk about that. And I was asked to go to the Tarrant County Medical Examiners Conference to talk about that case once many years ago. And there was a man who was in charge of the Weatherford College forensic program, and he asked me to come tell forensic or homicide case stories to his forensic students. And I did that for 21 and a half years, every 6 months.
Oh, jeez.
And so basically, I just became one of these guys that I did my job, and I wanted to both for the surviving members of the family of the person that was deceased, I wanted to bring justice to them, and but I also wanted everybody to know that I was working for God. There was a woman who was stabbed at an apartment complex directly across the street from Grand Prairie High School in September of 1992. She was stabbed 113 times. Her throat was cut, her eyes were cut, and she was sexually assaulted after she was dead. I'm not going to go into the whole investigation, but I eventually arrested the guy who did this. And there was an officer here named David Hooper, who was a school resource officer at Grand Prairie High School. And he came by my cubicle one day and he said, "Alan, how'd you solve this crime?" And out of my mouth came these words: "Patience is a virtue, persistence is a choice." And I tried to do the best I could to give God the glory. I didn't want to take the credit. It was the murder of this woman stabbed so many times. She had a 5-inch Bentley brand portable television that was stolen from her apartment.
Say, if you just for my own curiosity, who was it? Was it someone she was close to, or?
It was a guy named. He basically lived in the apartment complex a few months before she was killed, and he was trying to date her, and she wouldn't date him, and he was having a problem with his wife. It turned out basically he was mad at women, and he went to her.
It's like
113 times. Yeah, when I walked into that room and when I saw the upstairs apartment, that's overkill.
Oh, yeah.
I was certain that was a personal attack. Well, she had the name of 17 men and their phone numbers on her dry erase board on a refrigerator. So I was talking to the family. Well, the apartment manager told me about this Kenneth Smith, who had lived there before, who she had complained was putting notes on her car asking her to go out with him, and she was turning him down. Well, it was investigating him that led to some other things. I mean, that's a very complicated case. But yet, I asked him when I had all this information and I had more reasons to talk to him about some things. I asked him to come to the police station to visit me. He said, "Yeah, I'd be glad to." Okay. I didn't tell him he was a suspect.
Right.
But he came to the police station, the old station. The switchboard call said he's here. I mean, my mind is, why is this guy coming to see me?
Right.
And so he comes down, "Hey, Detective Patton, how you doing?" And okay, and we get in the elevator and we see there was crime scene. There was a bloody wine box in her refrigerator that somebody had moved the wine box to get a beer to clean up after they killed her. So we had this fingerprint that we had the Arlington police. We didn't have anybody doing fingerprints here. We're comparing fingerprints from everybody. We took their prints of everybody who was a suspect, okay? And we were giving them to Arlington PD. So he comes to the elevator. We go up to the second floor. We get off the elevator, and I'm walking by the CID secretary's desk to my cubicle, and I'm still inside. I'm freaked out. This guy's here to see me?
Right.
He drove his car to come see me. And CID secretary, Detective Patton, you have a call from Arlington Police. Well, we had a little room where we had some recording equipment for our interview room, and there was a chair in there. I didn't want to put him in my cubicle by himself.
Yeah.
So I said, "Would you mind having a seat here and let me take this phone call?" "Oh, no problem. I'll be glad to." I mean, it's all saw this. It's so nice. Yeah, this is Arlington PD. We have a match on that fingerprint. It's the left middle finger of Kenneth Smith. Detective Rick Oseguera worked with me in Major Crimes. I went to Rick and said, "Ricko, go get a warrant for this guy for capital murder. When the warrant's signed, knock on the door." I then went into the room. I'm armed. You know, I'm not worried. And we're starting to talk about, you know, did you know? Oh, yeah, I knew her. Yeah, I used to see her, you know, blah, 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 blah. And he was just giving me all this BS. But I'm listening to it while Rick O gets the warrant typed. And so I asked him about leaving notes on her car. And he said, no, I never did that. Well, there was a witness the night of the murder that saw a Hispanic male carrying some Church's chicken up to her door and saw her open the door like 2 hours before she was killed. So I had done a press release to the press about this Hispanic male. Described this guy, okay? And
this is before Uber Eats, so this is weird.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so
That's true, yeah, because he's saying a guy dropped. I don't know.
Right.
That's normal. Like
No, that's not. That was normal then.
I had that done this weekend.
Right.
But anyway, I'm talking to him, and I said, so have you, because in the refrigerator we found a box of Church's chicken and this wine box, okay? And the beer bottle was on the bathroom sink with blood all around it. So we were under the impression that whoever killed her moved the wine box, there was a smear of blood on it to get the beer and put it back. So he said, Church's chicken. Whoa, that was in the refrigerator. So I'm asking him about, how'd you know her? I'm just kind of killing time. Well, he worked for Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And Detective Dennis, the younger Dennis of the two Dennises, we were dividing up these persons of interest and we were checking them all out. Well, I gave him Kenneth Smith because the manager said he'd been leaving notes on her car. Okay. He tells this Detective Dennis, no, I was at work that night until midnight. Well, the murder occurred at 11:15 because neighbors heard screaming and this and that at 11:15.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, well, if he was at work till midnight and he was in Dallas, no, okay, well, but we took his fingerprints, okay? So now I've got this fingerprint match. So that he lied clearly to Detective Clay about where he was, okay? So I'm talking to him and I'm saying, so have you ever been in her apartment? No, I've never been in her apartment. So I said, you've never been in her apartment? He said, stand up, mother effer. I stood up. There was a tile on the floor. Put your toes against that tile in front of my toes. Do you see that line? Yes, sir, I do. That's the threshold of her apartment. You get that? This is how he's talking to me.
So he switched.
Oh,
He
yeah.
switched.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, okay, that's the threshold. I've never crossed the effing threshold of her apartment, you MFer. Knock on the door.
Yeah.
And I said, then how can you explain your left middle fingerprint on a bloody wine box in her refrigerator? You're under arrest for capital murder. Of course, he never talked to me. But basically, he had driven his car to the police station to see who? Detective Patton.
Yeah.
Well, I had to impound his car.
Right.
It was in the municipal court parking lot.
Yeah. Someone might target it if you
Yes.
don't take care
The
of it.
victim had been in the Navy as a corpsman. Okay. She was going to Dallas Baptist to get a degree as a nurse to go back into the Navy as a nurse. I went down to impound the car, okay? Got a search warrant to search it. Behind the driver's seat, there was a Hershey's Kisses candy tin that belonged to her that had her military collar brass in it. He took a trophy. And so I think he was a serial killer.
I was going to ask, do you think he was tied to any other unsolved crimes that you could probably look at?
His only previous arrest was for possession of stolen property in New York City. But no, I just think he was going to be.
Right.
Because he was going through a divorce with his wife.
Right.
But so there's this evidence that he came to the police station to see me, and in the back seat of his back floorboard on the driver passenger side, there was a piece of junk mail with her name written on it with her phone number. And so I'm like, okay, this is more evidence. Well, did I tell you about the Bentley brand television that was stolen? Okay, and this is where God comes into this investigation. Okay. He worked in Dallas. His estranged wife lived in Irving. I got a search warrant to go to her apartment to search her apartment for his clothing or anything I could find, and she called me a racist. I arrested him because he was black, whatever. I didn't find this, so I'm looking for this portable 5-inch Bentley brand portable television set. I'm typing my case. on an electric typewriter. The man upstairs called the Irving police pawn shop detective. I did pawn shops in Grand Prairie when I was a property crimes detective. Okay? Yes, sir. I called the Irving police and talked to their detective sergeant or sergeant in charge of pawn shops. I said, hey, listen, here's Kenneth from North Smith. This is his birthday. Can you see if he pawned anything in Irving, you know? Well, her body was discovered on August 28th, 1992. She was murdered August 27th. Her dad found her. But at any rate, he calls me back. Well, all I got is this. On the 28th of August, he pawned a Bentley brand portable television and a camera at this pawn shop in Irving. Do you think I'm looking for more evidence?
Yeah.
Okay. So I put together a photo lineup, because just because you pawn something in somebody's name doesn't mean that person pawned the thing.
Correct.
So I take a photo lineup over to this pawn shop. This is in September of 1992. And the guy comes out and I say, you're the guy. He says, yes, sir, how can I help you? I said, I got this pawn ticket here. You know, I got this item that was pawned. And I said, you know, did you process this pawn? Yes, I did. Well, so I need to show you a photo lineup to see if you can pick out the guy who pawned it. I don't need to look at a lineup. So why is that? We videotape all of our pawns. DVR or VHS. He brings me the tape. I plug the tape in. Here's Kenneth Smith pawning this television before her body's even discovered. And there was a camera he pawned also. I took the film out of that camera and had it developed. It was pictures of her sister's July wedding. He came to the police department with these things, the collar brass, and it just blew me away.
That's insane.
It's amazing how sometimes, you know, we think criminals are dumb, but this guy, in my opinion, just when I'm hearing the story, this guy had more of a sense of either a narcissist or something at that level, because he really, I mean, he came with this attitude of almost trying to be so nice to you to show you that could not possibly be me.
Yeah.
And then when he feels that wall closing in, he changes.
Well, I called Dart after the other detective told me he worked on midnight. I called Dart. He got off at 4 p.m. that day.
Of course.
So he didn't have so he lied about his alibi. Right. Okay, well then, remember the guy carrying the Kentucky Fried Chicken? This lady gave me this description. I had a press conference where this Hispanic male, this height, this age, okay, about October of 1992, after his arrest, he's been charged. I get a call from this lady. I have a beauty parlor over here, and the guy you were describing, he came over here to get his hair cut. Do you know his name? No, but next time he comes over, I'll give you what I can. So she called me back and said, he was here yesterday, and she gave me this guy's name. And it was a Hispanic male, okay? And I'm tracking him down, because what I'm trying now, because now the Kenneth's attorney is saying that this Hispanic male is the suspect, not my guy, you know. And so I'm looking and looking and looking. Well, I find an address of an apartment in Fort Worth for this guy, okay? And so I called the manager on the phone. I said, listen, I'm trying to find out if this guy still lives there. Well, I'm not comfortable talking to you over the phone, which that didn't surprise me, you know, okay. I'll come over. So I drove over to this apartment complex. I go into the office, and I'm talking to her. I'm trying to find if this guy still lives here. And she goes, why do you want to talk to him? I said, well, ma'am, I'm manager. I'm just, you know, I mean, this is a criminal investigation. I said, why are you grilling me? He's my brother. He comes walking in, this Hispanic male does. And he says, yes, we had been talking on the phone. She said she was hungry for fast food. I took her that chicken. I left at like 8:30. She was murdered at 11:15, okay? So what I was trying to do was to end that defense strategy. Yes, okay? Yeah. He took with me. We took a DNA. We had head hair. We had chest hair. We had DNA. We had all this evidence. And I exonerated him physiologically, forensically, of any involvement. When we went to court, the day we were going to go to trial, the attorney filed motions to suppress everything that I had gathered. And when the judge dismissed that filing, he changed his pleaded guilty because the DA was going to ask for the death penalty.
Yeah.
So, again, that's just that was the goriest of the cases I ever went to. But what you have to do as a police officer, besides just serving your public, is learn from your experiences. Experience is a great teacher. I've said this many times. I taught at the Regional Police Academy for quite a few years. You can't teach pride, experience, or common sense. You have to earn those things and learn those things.
That's good.
And the tenacity, I worked with detectives who, and tenacity, when you're trying to bring to justice someone who took the life of another person, it has to come from inside here. And so, I can storytell other cases. But
well, let me ask, and I don't know if I don't want to take over too much here.
I'm all excited. So I'm actually so two things actually. Can I
the tenacity level? Okay, the providing exculpatory evidence, and many police thought, why did you do that? Because it's the right thing to do. I mean, sometimes doing the right thing might not seem like the right thing, but when Greg Hunter and I were on the street crimes task force together, okay, we developed a relationship. And I was the Major Crimes Sergeant when Greg Hunter was killed. And I had to go make notification of the next of kin of the guy who killed him. But so my tenacity was hurting that day. But basically, I learned a lot of the kids from Dalworth. I learned their street names. Yo, bros. I was always slapping hands and yo, how you doing, man? How's the crib, man? Mom got some Q. Well, there was a young man that. This is when I'm the sergeant. There was a murder at one of the apartment complexes over on 19th Street, and this young man got arrested because when the police got there were a number of witnesses that said this guy did it. He's not here, but he did. This is who killed him. Okay. And Johnny was his name, okay? And Detective Gudgel and I think Keith Wester worked that case together, okay? They arrested the guy, filed a case on him with Dallas County for murder. It was it was a crack cocaine apartment complex. I'm the sergeant now. Johnny's mother calls me. Patton, Johnny wouldn't do this. Go talk to him. Because I know you. I know what you do. You'll get to the bottom of this. Do this for me. My son did not do this. I didn't ignore what she said. I had some barbecue there before. It was really good barbecue.
Well, let me interrupt. For you as a detective sergeant, case is clear. It's off the books. You got a clearance.
Yes.
Why go back and disturb it? And you're about to bring it up right now. Tenacity.
The tenacity, the truth about what really happened.
That's right.
I went over to the Dallas County Jail, unbeknownst to anybody else, all right? And I took Johnny down from the jail and took him to the best polygraph examiner in Dallas and had him administer a polygraph test to this kid. He passed with flying colors. When we got done, I took him to McDonald's and bought him a hamburger. But I said, well, why did they pin this on you? Do you know who Dirty Red is? Yeah, I do know who Dirty Red is. Dirty Red killed this guy. And then he threatened all these other people that if they didn't tell the police that I did it, he was going to kill their parents. So then I had Gudgel and Wester re-interview their eyewitnesses, and they all recanted their statements.
Did they give you, the detectives, did they give you any pushback initially?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because they trusted you?
Yes.
Got it.
And so I then, not to the joy of the Dallas County District Attorney, I went over and told him that Johnny Aaron Johnson was innocent of this crime. He'd been falsely accused. They released him. I took him home. But again, to get to the truth, the passion, there's so many people that they're kind of half into let's get to the truth about this. Oh, this witness said this. Oh, let's believe them. No, if there's reason to dispute what somebody is saying, then press them on the issue, but press them on it politely, but not giving in all the time. I mean, again, the nonverbal communication thing was a huge skill for me.
So I'm sorry, I have a question. So obviously, would you say that not everyone is as tenacious as you? Is that something you would say?
Well, they're not everybody is as tenacious as I was.
Right.
I would say that for sure.
Right.
Just listening to you, I would say
so
that.
And a case like that's a perfect example. And like you touched on it as far as why are you this?
Yeah.
This is done.
Yeah.
A lot of times people lose sight of why we do what we do, and it becomes a numbers game.
Absolutely.
And becomes about clearance rates, and they lose sight. And so my question for you is, having worked cases like that one, where had anyone else been in charge, and not to discount the work of other people, but another, even well-intentioned, even someone who's passable at their job, but who just didn't take that extra step, that guy might have been tried, might have been found guilty. Being that person that causes those problems sometimes and will shake trees that other people might not be willing to shake, has that altered or dampened your perspective on the profession as a whole, as far as how many slip through the cracks?
What I tried to do was lead by example. You know, there was a time, and I'm going to give you another example. There was a time when Detective was assigned to a homicide case. And what I knew, I told him to do this certain thing, okay? Well, then he didn't do it. So I called him into my office. I said, bring your case package into my office. So he came into my office, and I said, I told you to do this yesterday. Well, I don't think it needs to be done like that. I said, I'm reassigning this case to a different detective. You're off this case. You're taking this case away from me? Yes, I am. I told you to do something, and you didn't do it. The next morning, I called him back in my office and gave it back to him. I said, now, did you learn anything? Yes, Sarge, you got instincts, and you know about things, and so, yes, I should listen to you. So basically, it's why you know there's certain people who have anxiety or who really aren't looking to, follow your lead as a supervisor or whatever, is just the tenacity of doing that job is necessary. Now, would I do that on a Class A assault? Probably not. But
Sure.
a capital murder or murder, yes. And so, as I said earlier, when I first became a police officer in Grand Prairie, I saw things supervisors would do that I don't want to do that, or I want to mirror that guy.
Right.
And so what I tried to do was to lead by example. And when I made sergeant, I got to hand pick who took my place, Mike Gudzel, Daniel Cesny. I mean, just basically I wanted us to be a major crimes unit that people respected and trusted. We're going to do the whole thing and do the complete job, including the exculpatory evidence. And was it difficult sometimes to put exculpatory evidence to give to a defense attorney to use? Yes, it was. But it just, don't do it. I want to use the word half-ass. Sorry about that. But it's an intensity thing. And there was a shooting of a girl was shot in the bed of an empty trailer over off of West Jefferson. Okay, and I'm there, and she's in the back of this trailer. She's been shot several times, and nobody has any idea who did it or whatever. And so I go to talk to some people that she knew that lived in Dalworth, okay, and somebody made a statement and started crying and said, so-and-so did it. And I listened to what that person said. And for 3 days, I didn't sleep. I was on it while it was hot. This person, this person, this person. You got to talk to that person over there, this person here. And I ended up finding the guy and putting him in jail for killing that girl. And she was a prostitute. But it didn't matter to me.
Right.
What you did or what you didn't do for a living or who you were, or what your criminal history might have been. Let's get the truth about who took your life.
Most people look at shows like Law and Order, NYPD Blue, those kind of detective shows that come out of Hollywood, and they get it done in an hour, right? But yet when we're talking about days on end. I think the first 48 may give a better perspective because they're doing it in the first 48 hours or so of the case, but still it protracts a little longer. But there have been times when I know that, like you said, the adrenaline is flowing, and you didn't know, you didn't realize that you were up for 3 days until maybe the third day when you got what you needed, and all of a sudden you slept for the next the next 3 days, right?
But it was, where we still had the, when I created the sexual assault unit, which was Brazil and oh my goodness, what's his name? But anyway, I created the and basically because child crimes were horrible crimes, but just whatever it is you're doing, whether it's property crimes, narcotics, major crimes, I mean, whatever it is, tenacity is a great attitude to have. And the no stone unturned type of thing, which, learned that from Vern Gebreth. Just simply having this personal drive to serve professionally the police department in a manner that brings, gratitude to those who you serve.
You ever watch TV today, the news especially, you see a homicide case or murder case, and all of a sudden your mind starts turning. You want to say, did they do this? Did they check that? Did they talk to this person?
I watched the Gabby Petito show last week.
Okay.
And I'm like,
right.
Why didn't y'all do this when y'all had her pulled over when she'd been beat up by him? But my wife loves watching true crimes.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it irritates me when they do something they shouldn't do.
Exactly.
So yes,
we all in that same case.
So when why are we watching this?
So when she says that, I'm playing 8-ball pool or playing on my phone.
Yeah.
But yes, I do watch, and
because it never leaves you, right?
And I want to give Vernon Gebreth some praise here. Okay, I met him in February of 1991. Okay, he's still in my life professionally. He had me come to a conference once to speak about one of the murder cases I worked. And the we work for God part of this, I mean, as a Marine, I really didn't have a relationship with God, even after I didn't get killed on January 19th. I mean, but professionally, the relationship that God kept me here to do these jobs, He made it very personal over the course of the years as well. So I still work for God. Just not in the capacity as a Grand Prairie police.
Well, I think I've always thought police work in itself is a calling.
Yes, sir.
It's just some people come on as a great job, great benefits. Man, I just feel like it's a calling. And I think that you exhibit that, particularly when you're talking about homicide investigations. It's a call.
Well, Fred, when in 2008, in the summer of 2008, when Glenn Hill called me into his office when Kenny Lee retired and told me he wanted me to take over internal affairs, I was like, oh no.
There's two jobs I had no desire for: child crimes and
internal affairs. Well, but I took my tenacity and my one thing leads to another and persistence. I took all it with me. I've been asked several times to do internal affairs investigations at other agencies, which I've done. In fact, Detective Mike Gudgel, who's now the police chief up there, and he said, I have a friend who's a chief of the police, this little small town. He has a situation. Will you investigate that for him? Sure. But I'm the drive to both get to the truth, the bottom of things, without the benefit of being a place should consume an investigator, especially one in the crimes against persons world.
Right.
Yes. I mean, there was we used to didn't have family violence. Okay. If you and I were brothers and I committed a crime, I tried to threaten you with a knife and you called the police. If you decided you wanted to drop charges, you come to sign an affidavit. The charges were dropped. Right. There was a girl who lived over by the old police station on Phillips Court, and she made several complaints against her husband, threatening her with a gun. Each time I was assigned to the case, each time she came in and signed an affidavit to withdraw charges, and he got let loose from the jail. I went over there one summer, and he shot her in the back of the head and killed her in front of her children. And I stood over her and I said, ma'am, if you'd have just prosecuted him, you would still be alive probably. But then the family violence law came out, so that made it where we had no choice. Gave us the ability to, if you made a complaint, you want to come drop the charges, no, you can't do that. You can go talk to the Dallas County Victims Unit. But, just this tenacity thing, and being a street cop, what I tried to do as a street cop was be polite and let somebody else, their personality change me to a response to them. If they're being horses' butts, then okay, now what's going to happen? But I want to say this about the Grand Prairie Police Department. Yes, I've been retired 12 and a half years. I could not have chosen a better police department to come to. This department has grown from what it used to be to what it is today, and I'm just very, very humbled that y'all would ask me to come do this. I really am.
Oh, it's been super. I've enjoyed the hell out of this.
And there's still lots of other stories to tell, but I'm just saying that, it's a case of when Chief Sesney called me last week and told me about this podcast and asked me would I be involved. I didn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
I said yes. And I've been contemplating what are they going to ask me and what are they going to talk about, because, again, 9 years old when I moved here. I turned 10 a couple of months after we got here, but I'm just, this has been my home. Yes, I'm not living here anymore. But when I am called to schools, I've been called to forensic conferences in Corpus Christi. I mean, I get requested to bring case studies to different entities and people that know me through the community, et cetera, and I never tell them no. Because what I do when it's all said and done is I give credit to the police department, credit to the training of Vernon Gebreath, and also just that God created me to be who I was as a person. My wife, I say this all the time, there's Alan being Alan, and there's Sergeant Patton being Sergeant Patton. And so people know that Alan never meets a stranger, okay? And yesterday I was at a place called TXM. I went to go karaoke last night with a friend of mine, okay? And there were these two ladies that were walking up there, and I started doing some little moves. They're, oh, look at you, what are you doing? I said, watch this, and I twerked for them. Okay, and they both cracked up big time. They both cracked up big time. You're 70 years old. You just did it again. Okay, all right. But I say this all the time. I don't care if you're laughing at me or with me, as long as you got a smile on your face. That's my inside personality. The class of '72, class clown. I went to Vietnam 5 months. Went to Japan for 7 months. When I left Japan at the age of 19. They gave me a plaque that's hanging on my wall at home. Lance Corporal Alan T. Goofy Patton. Okay? And so it's just, but having that personality, but putting on that belt, sliding that pistol into my holster, handcuffs, squad car key, answering calls, making traffic stops, I was Officer Patton.
I already know the answer to this, but here's the question. If you had to go back, if you could go back, would you change it?
Would I change
being a police officer?
No, I would not. Now, I want to answer that question. The answer is absolutely not. The only thing I might do different is instead of retiring, because I wanted to do 35 years, is I should have just sucked it up and continued to serve in internal affairs because I knew I was going to do the right thing.
Sure.
And I wouldn't change a thing about my career. I mean, going from being injured and almost killed in line of duty to going back to work. And apparently I was writing really good police reports. So the criminal investigations got, we want him to be a detective because he writes good reports and makes good decisions. So, just basically, no, I wouldn't change a thing.
And I think that's another thing, too, that many times those of us that have had careers where we've got to do what we wanted to do and enjoy doing, many times we look back and there were people that helped us get to where we were. You can go back and name those names of people that actually invited you to be a part of this or asked you to do this or, encourage you to be a part of that. You know, so
Yes. Well, can I tell you all a police story after I say this?
yeah.
Okay. Carlos.
He's
Carlos
not. No,
gone.
he's back. He's not back there. He's
not back there?
No, we changed. We changed.
No, they did an internal affairs thing on you.
Oh, what? Brad, you're back here? You're right. So I was telling us about, yeah, Brad. I remember when he was a young cop.
Yeah.
How old are you now, Brad? How old are you?
45.
45. Spring chicken,
Yeah.
70.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like hearing Brad's name. Oh, how cool is that? And then Fred. I mean, you know, I left here with a ton of people I thought the world of.
Yeah.
And so being here at this building, you know, and I've been so humbled since Daniel, since Chief Chesney called me last week. I've been so humbled, wondering what's it going to be like? What am I going to say? Because I'm never at a loss for words.
Right.
But I want to tell y'all a quick cop story, okay? It's a wonderful, it's a family cop story.
It's rare.
My dad, helicopter pilot for the Dallas Police Department. My brother, street cop for the Cedar Hill Police Department. Beltline Road used to run from Cedar Hill down through where Joe Pool Lake is now and up into Grand Prairie, okay? I go back to work February 1st, 1983. Mid-February of 1983, I'm working the south side of town. Day shift. I get a call. Cedar Hill PD is chasing a stolen Pontiac GTO. They are burglary suspects, northbound on Beltline, and they're asking for assistance. I'm saying 10-4, and I'm like, Jack's working today. Wouldn't that be cool if that was Jack? So I'm on Corn Valley, driving towards Beltline Road, okay, which what it used to be Robinson Road now, I think. I don't know what it is, but there was all woods west of that. I'm driving on Corn Valley going west towards Beltline, and I see this GTO go off into a culvert. I see two white guys get out. One jumps over the barbed wire fence west into the woods. The other gets up and turns and runs to the southeast, back towards where the lake is now. I see the Cedar Hill squad car slide up there, and I see my brother get out of the squad car. He doesn't know that it's me.
Right.
He sees a Grand Prairie squad car. He's pointing, chase that guy, the one that jumped over the fence.
Like any smart street cop would.
Yes.
I'll get the guy who didn't jump over that.
Yes. And so I'm like, that's my brother.
Yeah,
How
right.
cool is this?
Yeah.
I get out of the car. I don't climb the fence. I leaped over the fence. Okay. Now I'm in the woods trying to find this guy. All of a sudden, there's a Dallas police helicopter hovering because Dallas police helicopters will respond to chases. Okay. Son, he's over here. I go over. I find my guy hiding under some bushes, okay? I tussle with him. He loses that fight, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm walking back into the car, okay, get him through the fence without getting him all scratched up. And here comes my brother out of the woods. His uniform's all tattered and torn. And we're getting closer together, and my brother says, "You guys jacked with the wrong family today." My wife calls that her favorite police story.
That has got to be a favorite. Yeah, Dad.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And my dad retired a month later.
Okay.
cool.
You know, so I just had to share that with y'all.
No, that's
that's
a
fun.
family cop
That's a
story.
great close story.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, man, I want y'all to understand, and Brad, I appreciate the invitation. I mean, I've been humbled since the moment I got off the phone with Daniel Chesney about this, and I hope I've been a good interview and y'all have gotten what you're looking for. If you,
Yeah, so
you know.
I'm so relieved that you're a talker. 'Cause
Oh, I am.
It's nice to be able to just.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I got the email to that he was going to be the subject.
Suspect.
I was about to say the suspect, the interviewee, and I was going to come in and pinch hit. Man, I was excited because I said that's an old homicide guy right there. I can.
Yeah, Fred and I go way back.
Yeah, I can chat.
Yeah, and I saw, it's just I saw Pitts leaving out the building when I came in, and I said hi to him, and Teresa Coombs still works here after 45 years. She and I got hired the same month.
Yeah, she'll never leave. She'll never leave.
No.
But
before I let you get out here, I do want to ask. We always kind of give people the chance to impart some kind of advice to officers. A lot of times they kind of fit their circumstance, but just looking over the generations as far as how police work has developed and how applicants have developed compared to when you were younger.
Right.
What would you offer to guys or girls that are looking to come into the profession?
come into it without any preconceived notions about what it's going to be like, other than enforcing the law. Because people, I had thoughts of what's traffic stop going to be like and this, that, and the other. But basically, you got to be able to adjust and modify your thinking based upon the penal code changing every September. And then the Supreme Court's making rulings on certain searches and seizures and this and that. You have to be open to keep your mind open to learning a new way to do things because the law has changed. And then also finding out what are and reading the police department's policies and then following those policies, and just being open to knowledge and experience is still a great teacher, and basically if you think you made a mistake, learn from that mistake. Don't beat yourself up because you made a mistake. Learn from it. And again, watching other people, as I talked about earlier, watching other supervisors and other police officers, and no way I want to handle that. But no, the way he handled that, that's the way I want to handle things.
That's right.
So just basically learn something new every day. I used to say that all the time when I was an FTO. Learn something new every day. And don't be afraid. What I did is I found a supervisor in Sergeant Robert L. Wilbanks that I could trust he was going to give me the best sage advice ever and wasn't going to BS me or try to lead me astray. And then I found some police officers that were on the streets that I would sit and visit with them about what's going on in the streets and try to keep myself updated on what's happening out there and how is this law affecting your enforcement of the law. And so it's like a never-ending learning situation. Because courts make rulings and the Supreme Court makes a ruling about this or that or the other, but it's a wonderful, wonderful career. I mean, that I was nearly killed on the line of duty August 9th, 1982, and all the horrible things that I saw, it never changed who I am as a person. The tenacity level with all these days of not sleeping ended when I became a supervisor pretty much. But just simply learn something new every day, roll with the tide, look for examples from senior officers to get an example of how things should be done, and then incorporate that into how you do your job. And then also have a supervisor that when they come to you to talk to you, you listen to what they're saying. They're trying to teach you, and I did plenty of that as a supervisor, and I did it in internal affairs as well. There's several people I gave advice. If you don't want to get fired, you probably need to resign. And the internal affairs is a whole other story. But I'm just saying, there were officers I couldn't stand that did stuff that I proved they didn't do, and because the tenacity about getting to the bottom. Get the truth of things without the benefit of being there when the thing happened. But no, this is a marvelous career in the Grand Prairie Police Department. I may be a little bit biased because I spent 32 years and 22 days here, not that I counted, but this is an awesome police department, and the city has grown in a way that there's opportunities, and I'm sure there's all kinds of. I heard about a shooting up at the business up here, the furniture store up there, IKEA. There was a shooting up there, but just basically be safe. Get a good relationship with your coworkers, and don't be afraid to sit somebody down and talk to them if you feel like there's done something they did. You want to question why they did it or to learn from it. Is that okay?
That's solid. Well, we sure appreciate it. It's been.
Man, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I could do this for hours.
Me too. I get back, watch the bullheads, shoot it. It was awesome.
Because there's stories to be told. But it's just again, I love this place, and I'm just so honored I got to see you two and got to meet you today. I mean, Brad's got stars on his collar.
Yeah. He's wearing them well.
And I also got a nickname with Mr. Hollywood when I went to Dateline ABC and People Magazine in best case.
Sure.
But gentlemen, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute. I'm just absolutely overwhelmed and happy and proud of my service here and getting to talk to y'all about it today. And because, there's police officers in East Texas that I go to church with 2 police officers working in different cities, and they're always talking to me about internal affairs matters and this, that, and the other. And the chief of police in Lindale has asked me about possibly being a chaplain for the police department there.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm just, I still am involved with the local police department and the sheriff's department as well. So it's just, there's a love for the profession that, for me, has never gone away.
Well, once Chief does the hard part and actually gets us edited up, you'll have something to show him.
Okay.
So,
All right,
I
gentlemen.
sure appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Until next time.